And are we live? Okay, I think we're live.
Woo!
Okay, guys, let me know. Let me know if you can see it. I think we're live. Are we
Um,
live? I don't know.
there it is.
Yes, yeah.
We're live. Okay. On my YouTube end, recording in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Hitbox viewers. Supervin47 here, bringing you episode 3 of the Game Dev Podcast, with my co-hosts Eniko from Kitsune Games, and inviting our guest Nick Udell from Udellgames.
Hello.
Hello.
How have you guys been?
The guest can go first.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've been pretty good. Just released Hyper Gauntlet 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that's been quite fun. First game release ever, if you don't count, little jam games. So that's been a learning experience, certainly.
Ooh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. Dude, I remember following your game back in, Christ, it would have been over the summer, I think. No, well, like September or so. You were
right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were one of the first devs I followed, actually.
Oh, I'm touched.
Yeah, man. Okay, so let's see. It's been a while since I've done this podcast. I'm so sorry. This is only the third episode too. So what was the format? Eniko, do you remember the format that we talked about, or?
First you ask, me and the guest what we've been up to, and then, we go on to topics, I guess?
Oh yeah, that's right. Talk about your projects. Okay, Eniko.
Well, I've been working on Mid-Boss because, that's kind of what I do. And, making good progress, and actually the alpha preview should be out in about a week.
Oh wow. That's right. Yeah.
It was supposed to be out today, but then I got burnt out and didn't do anything for a week, so.
Oh, that's cool.
Ah, cool.
And
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
And Nick, so you just released it 2 weeks ago, right? For sale on Itch.io.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, on March 1st on Itch.io and also on Indie Game Stand. And there'll be Humble Store coming soon, actually. They've emailed me to say, yay, everything's good, just sort a few things out and pull the trigger, and I keep forgetting to reply.
Oh, well, okay.
So
I'll have
how's
to
that
get
going?
It's going pretty well. We've already released one patch because it was wonderful. There was a big release, and then there's a game-killing bug which I had to fix.
Oh, is it in the version that you sent me?
Yeah, I think so. It depends when you downloaded it, because I just completely replaced the file that the download link pointed to. But if you got it within the first day or two, it turns out if you sort of hammer the shift key down, you'll get hammer the space key down, you get permanent slow-mo, which is a bit game killing for the high scoreboards.
Yeah, that is true. The version I have you sent to me on the somewhere around the early 20th of February. So
Then yeah, you've got that version.
oh, I've got the broken version. Okay, well that's interesting.
So I'm looking at the website, and so you can still download the alpha for free, but the beta is for pay.
Yeah, that's right. The alpha is it's not too different from the beta at the moment, but obviously it won't get any new upgrades as I go along. It's currently also a bit buggy and not quite as polished, although I am planning to update the alpha to a much more stable version very soon, once I've disentangled it a bit from the paid version. Yeah, so the alpha it's sort of a demo. Your high scores go into a separate high scoreboard, so your stuff in the alpha won't affect the paid people, and vice versa, because there are somewhat different game mechanics for the two sides.
So if anyone's interested in trying, they can get a glimpse of what they'll get by downloading the alpha.
Yeah, and there's even a web player over there, so you can just play it in your browser if you've got the Unity plugin. In fact, I'll put the link in for the chat there right now.
Make sure you remove like HTTP.
Sure.
Yep. Because otherwise the link will automatically be blocked for some reason. I don't know why.
Fair enough.
Alright, let's see if I can't.
There we go. So over there, yeah, there's links to buy it as well via itch.io and Indie Games Stand. And if you scroll down a little bit further, there's the web player for version, I believe, 0.9.2 or something like that. The other difference is the free version doesn't have any of the power-ups that are in the paid version as well. So it's the core game experience.
Uh-oh, hang on. There we go. And
You're having issues with the footage.
I'm just trying to put it up, actually. Just give me a second. I can do this. I can do this.
It's a live show. It happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't do game capture. Okay. Alright, then how about window capture? But anyway, Nick, how about you tell us the process you went through for Hyper Gauntlet?
Well, Hyper Gauntlet started really as just a side project. I didn't really intend it to ever come to release. I was sitting around. I was working on an old Jam game called Fusebreaker, which I was deciding to turn into a full-featured game. And I was bored one day, and I thought, well, I'll just do a quick little test to see what this sort of game would be like. You know, I've been playing. I believe I've been playing Super Hexagon a bit at the time. I'd been playing a game called Atomic at the time, and that sort of thing. And I was getting this sort of idea for this sort of minimalist dodging game. And I just thought I'd see what I could do in that sort of spectrum. And I put up a build on Reddit a couple of weeks later. You know, only about 20 hours of work or something, and people seemed to really like it. So. Okay. I took their feedback on board and just kept going with it, and here we go. You know, Fusebreaker's completely shelved and Hyper Gauntlet's released.
So I'm curious, what Reddit did you actually put it on?
I put it on the game dev subreddit's Feedback Friday thread.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. I hear about that one a lot.
It's like how effective has the Feedback Friday thing been for you, by the way?
Well, It really depends what you're aiming for. I think it doesn't necessarily build up any sort of fan base, but what it does give you is it gives you feedback, and it gives you sort of new ideas from people who are either making similar things in some cases or who have just gone down that road before, which is helpful.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it does get you some fans, obviously, but I think it's good. It gets you into this sort of habit of very regularly releasing updates to people and sort of making sure you've got a build that works, and getting a version out there that people can try and just go, okay, I don't like this, or this would be better if it was slightly faster or slower.
Okay, alright. But in terms of, like, say, marketing or advertising, where are you planning to go? Or just like now that the game's released, what are you planning to do with it?
Well, now that it's released, I'm planning to continue supporting it. Obviously, it's beta. Mm-hmm. I don't consider it finished.
Oh. Okay.
But I intend to try and get it in as many places as I can. Media of all kinds, really, streamers and Let's Players have been very valuable. So far, actually, when it launched, I had a good couple of people playing it, live, and that, I mean, genuinely, just from being able to hang out while they were playing it and chat to people who were watching it, mm-hmm. and sort of explaining how things were going on, that got me a few more loyal people who then went on to buy the game. So that was great. It's so for me, it's been most successful when it's been a personal connection. More so than with the news, but I'm going to reach out again. I unfortunately seem to have had my best media exposure for one of the alpha builds, But I'm gonna have to try again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, reaching out to media is always fun.
Yeah.
Let's just call it fun instead of a less appropriate word.
Well, anyways, well, I just died.
How long are you gonna keep playing in the background?
It's hard.
Not that long, apparently.
Not that long. Hey, while running a podcast, not that bad, I say.
You did okay.
Press slow. Okay. All right, I got it. But anyway.
Kind of reminds me of Tetris, though.
Sort of, but not really. It's definitely.
It's like if Tetris was trying to kill you.
Yes. There we go.
I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Quote me on that one.
No, that's.
Might have to.
I feel like that's actually pretty damn accurate. But I want to say, this is actually going to lead into a topic that Eniko proposed earlier. It's a very fast, simplistic game, but it's actually a lot of fun.
I am amazed that you are making that mental connection as well, because we haven't actually discussed, using that as a segue.
Well, it just happened to work.
Yeah, so are we going on to topics then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll start since, I've been playing a lot of One Finger Death Punch, and I think it's great. It's amazing. And I don't know if everyone here knows what One Finger Death Punch is, but I'll explain it briefly.
Chat is not updating. Hang on. Okay, yeah, continue.
Well, you're a kung fu master, and enemies are coming from the left and the right, and you use your left and right mouse buttons to attack that direction. And if they're not near enough, you miss and you basically get hit. And it's so simple. And it's purely skill-based, which is kind of the same thing that Hyper Gauntlet is. And I think that's actually way more fun than a lot of games I've played in years. Of course, One Finger Death Punch also has all the juiciness to it, like all the impacts feel really, impactful and all that kind of stuff. But it is kind of a similar type skill-based game, isn't it?
Nick, have you heard of One Finger Death Punch, by the way?
Yeah, I've played a bit of it. I agree. It's. I think part of the reason it's so compelling is that it is quite simple, but very difficult to master. As you're going along, there's precision and.
Screw it. I was thinking of putting it on, but nah, it's. I think I have some videos of it somewhere around here.
Well, can you just put some YouTube on?
Yeah. Anyway, continue, Nick. I'm so sorry.
It's alright.
It's been a long time.
I think it's the combination of the sort of the precision that you need, along with the simple mechanic. So you don't have to, if you've not played it for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks and you can't remember all the controls or anything, that's not a problem in this sort of game. Because, well, so there's so little to remember, but it all becomes ingrained into this one single skill that you're constantly trying to perfect and improve again and again and again. It's not a blend of things like, for example, in an RPG, you're not, I don't know, maximizing your damage per second. At the same time, you've got to make sure you're hitting all of your skills at exactly the right times. There's so many different things to keep in your head at once. Whereas this sort of game, it's all one thing that you see your own improvement in again and again and again.
Do you think that skill-based games, like seeing as you've made one, obviously, do you think that skill-based games like this are sort of like what could be the new thing?
I think so, but at the same time, I think it's very hard to reach a lot of people with a skill-based game. There are some people that love almost the inherent rage in playing a game, like something like Super Meat Boy, for example. I mean, or Super Hexagon, and in some ways Hyper Gauntlet. As you're playing it, you get this sort of sense of real frustration at yourself for making what you then see as a stupid mistake, and then you get those wonderful moments where everything just seems to flow together. And you get a score far higher than you normally do. And I think it's that combination of these rapid lows and highs that make it almost addictive. But I think for some people, those games just present frustration instead. And for a lot of people, games are meant to be relaxing. And so I think it'll take off a lot as the sort of the variety of games, particularly as indie is obviously exploding all around us. Mm-hmm. As there is a much larger variety of games, I think it'll take off more because people will be able to see that there are 5 or 6 games of this type. They'll know what to search for. They'll see more of it. But I don't think it'll be as successful as something like the RPG or something.
So are you saying that it's just not established yet, but as it gets more common, more and more people will like it, or?
Yeah, I reckon more and more people will like it, but I reckon there'll always be this strong contingent of people that will just find them frustrating and not something they can relax while playing with, and it won't be the sort of game they're looking for.
Well, see, the interesting thing there is I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit here. I do not like games such as Super Meat Boy and, that sort of super hard frustration kind of game, but I'm not sure that One Finger Death Punch is actually such a game. I'm not sure if Hyper Gauntlet is either, because if you start up a Hyper Gauntlet game, I mean, the goal is to get as far as you can, right?
I actually agree with Eniko, because in games like One Finger Death Punch and Hyper Gauntlet, I feel like if you make a mistake, it's actually on you. Whereas games like Super Meat Boy or I Want to Be the Guy or any like platformer hair pulling out type of thing, those games, it's not so much like, oh, you screwed up. It's more like the game is intentionally trying to kill you.
Well, that's not even my point, actually.
Oh, no.
I think the key difference is in One Finger Death Punch and Hyper Gauntlet, it's that there is no real progression. I mean, in One Finger Death Punch, there is progression in the level system, except they've really done a great job in that part of the game by doing the victory speed modifier and the loss speed modifier. So what happens to people who haven't played it much is in One Finger Death Punch, if you're doing well, it'll keep speeding up the multiplier. So the levels are the same, but the enemies are quicker. And eventually you're going to lose like once every 15 games on beginner. And then it'll reset and it'll be easier again. And I think that really, even in the progression-based levels, which is not the game's strength, I think that's more of a practice mode for survival. You never feel like you're not progressing, and I think that's something that Hyper Gauntlet has too, because there's nowhere to really go. It's just, improving yourself.
Apparently, Sheep Pollution says to Nick, make a second game mode where you need to shoot down the blocks before they hit the screen. That's what I did. I don't understand what you mean by that, or...
For Hyper Gauntlet, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, right. They're saying they made a similar game when they were messing around with Unity.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I'd play that if they put it up. It's almost like a first-person... what was the old game? Missile Defense, was it? Ages and ages and ages ago. It used to be in the arcade cabinets, I think.
Oh. Before they... Was it a first-person thing?
No, that was a 2D sort of side thing where you'd fire missiles at incoming missiles to try and explode them before they landed.
Totally ignoring my point, by the way.
Sorry, yeah, no. I'll get. No, I think you're right. Actually, I think that in a lot of cases there is not. in things like Meat Boy, where they are sort of they're very frustrating, and the progression is. I would say there is progression in both types of games, but I would say in the Meat Boy sort of thing, it can be more randomized and less. I mean, the game itself isn't randomized, but you make such slight mistakes, and they cost you so heavily. So where you die in Meat Boy and games like that is very random over the course of the level, whereas in games like Hyper Gauntlet and all that, the progression is more steady because your skill is not quite so viciously punished that a simple small mistake isn't going to kill you straight away, and you're going to. If you start getting scores of, say, 200,000, you'll continue to get scores that start to go up to 220, 230, 250, etc. So you'll see that constant level of progression. Whereas in Meat Boy, you could do like 5 levels completely fine, all in one go, and then immediately, bam, you're doing 100 or 200 attempts to get through the next level.
Yeah, it's because of. I think part of the problem is the levels as a unit of progress. Because in Hyper Gauntlet, how do I explain it? I had it all in my head and I'm saying it and the words are not coming to me. It reminds me of Dance Dance Revolution. And don't laugh at me.
No.
Instantly everyone laughs. It seems more like progression is more internal and personal, except like in Super Meat Boy, it's very much external because it's tied to the levels. And in Hyper Gauntlet, if you get further, it's because you've gotten better, and that's more of an internal thing than an external.
Oh yeah,
it's not like in One Finger Death Punch, one level is suddenly going to be impossible, and you're going to be very frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think you're probably very very much right about that. It is very much a personal thing when you get better in those sort of skill games like Hyper Gauntlet, Hexagon, and all that. I would say there is some sense of personal skill in the other games, but I agree. Part of it is also down to just the feeling that, hey, the level was nice to me. Maybe the enemy moved in the right place for me in one bit, or I just happened to hit it in just the right button. I also think where you were saying with the levels and progression, I think one of the problems with Meat Boy and games like that is that a level in Meat Boy is a very discrete unit of progression.
Yeah, exactly.
And it takes quite a long time to do each discrete unit, whereas the scores in Hyper Gauntlet and just getting another enemy in One Finger Death Punch is a very small unit to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
So you can count yourself going through those much more easily than waiting to get the next level in Super Meat Boy, which could be 100, 200 extra plays.
Mm.
Well, one of the things that I find interesting about One Finger Death Punch is I'm a game dev, but I'll admit that I don't really game regularly anymore, and I haven't really enjoyed games as much over the past few years until One Finger Death Punch, and I'm thinking maybe it's because games have just become less and less reliant on actual player skill and more on something else, which I haven't quite figured out yet, which apparently kind of bores me, maybe. Not sure. Like if you contrast One Finger Death Punch to something like, say, Diablo 3, I mean, there's not a lot of player skill involved in Diablo 3.
Actually,
at least I didn't feel like it.
Relative to a game like Hyper Gauntlet or One Finger Death Punch, I would say actually no. Diablo 3 to me feels a lot of it feels very reliant on progression in the forms of getting higher levels or getting better equipment. Nick, have you played Diablo 3?
I actually haven't played it. I decided I'd wait for the reviews to come out, and they kind of put me off. I've watched a few gameplay videos though, and I've played games similar to Diablo, so I see what you're getting at. Yeah, your progression is more tied down to the items you have and that sort of thing, and so it sort of becomes a function of just the amount of time you put into the game. Because I mean, you get better items and equipment and that sort of thing from fighting the stronger enemies, but at the same time, theoretically, in some of these, I don't know if it does apply to Diablo 3, but you could theoretically just grind on really low level for so long that you become more powerful than anything else there.
It is definitely a grind. Are you a former World of Warcraft player or anything like that?
I've played a few MMOs, not World of Warcraft itself. I try to avoid that just in case it drags me in too far. But yeah, I'm familiar with the games.
Like there's a certain concept in a game like World of Warcraft called gear capping. Gear capping refers to regardless of skill, irregardless of skill, you are physically, like, you are not able to progress past a certain point unless you meet a gear check. Like, unless your equipment is of a certain quality, no matter how good of a player you are, no matter how well you know the game, you're physically unable to get past a certain point just because of the sheer amount of damage that will happen to you. You know, and I think that's sort of what Eniko is referring to in terms of, like, some games not being as entertaining, right?
Yeah, I've refined the idea while you two have been talking a bit, and I think it's not just in level-based systems, though. I think it's become a dominant trend especially in AAA gaming, that kind of gated progression system. If you look at like Far Cry 3 or the new Tomb Raider, it's the same thing. It's like collect scrap, and then eventually you get an upgrade, and you get a perk, and you get a new gun, and it's all staggered, and the things you usually get at a certain point in the game, and they'll help you more or less easily beat the next part of the game. And it's just, there's just so little player skill involved that I've taken to watching Let's Plays of games that I find interesting, because I just can't be bothered actually pushing the buttons anymore.
Ooh.
And that sounds really cynical and jaded, and I suppose in a way it is, but I do think that's kind of a worrying trend, actually. I think that indie games have done far better at, giving that kind of skill-based gameplay that AAA gaming hasn't really given anyone.
Is it sort of like a mechanics type thing to you?
What do you mean?
Like, instead of focusing on, say, the theatrics or the ease of which players can get into the game or the story, it's more, for indies, at least, it's more so about the mechanics of the game. You know, like...
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose part of that is that it's a lot easier to design a game that requires you to actually train up your skill as a player, rather than unlocking things inside the game that make it easier. But I don't think that's entirely the reason why indie games do it more than AAA games. I think AAA games do it less than indie games, because AAA games have that whole appeal to a wider audience thing going on that nobody likes.
Yeah, Phil Royer is saying, like, even BioShock Infinite is like that. It's like a movie that you push buttons for. Yeah, I kind of agree.
The character throws you, health and ammo and stuff when you need it.
Nick, have you played any of the BioShocks?
Yeah, BioShock and BioShock Infinite, absolutely. I love them as experiences. Number one, more as a game than Infinite, because I agree, it is a bit like watching a movie with quick time events in it. Well, having said that, even with Elizabeth chucking me health and all that, I probably died 50 or 60 times with that ghost. The
ghost fight. Yeah.
Yeah. It was strange. Most of the game was really easy, and then that one fight took ages and ages and ages.
Now, let me ask you, do you think that you died a lot during that ghost fight because of your own skill, or was it just like insane?
I think it was. I think it was actually majorly because of a lack of resources. Once I got to that stage, I don't know whether I'd just been playing crazily beforehand, but I had barely any ammo left in any of my weapons. So I was left running around with the ghost who, for those who haven't played it, likes to resurrect dead soldiers to fight against you. And I had nothing left when it came to the for want of a bit salts, I think they were called, wasn't it, for using the powers. I had none of that.
Okay.
Elizabeth wasn't really bringing me anything, so every time I died, all I had was the ammo that they give you when you restart the game from a new life, which was, I think, 2 guns worth of ammo. And you know, this constant horde of dead soldiers coming at you as well.
And that is, again, it's not up to you as a player. It's up to the developers for, you know, making resources scarce. I guess it just all seems a bit unsatisfying to me. But you know, I've been gaming for 30 years, and
that situation, I don't know if it's a gear check or a skill check. Like all of BioShock Infinite, you become reliant on Elizabeth as a resource cache, effectively.
Well, maybe they were trying to make a point in that scene about Elizabeth and how reliant you've become upon her. I'm not sure that could be, but if you look at the wider trend of AAA gaming.
Yeah. Oh. Here's your version of Hyper Gauntlet from a year or so ago. Okay. Have we talked about the ESO, perhaps the beta? We have not. I actually have not yet played Elder Scrolls Online.
I also have not played Elder Scrolls Online.
Me neither, I'm afraid.
I don't intend to, honestly. It can only be bad.
One of the only things that's keeping me from playing Elder Scrolls Online is the fact that it's still based on a subscription payment.
Aren't they double dipping? Aren't they doing like subscription plus cash shop?
Yes.
That is just the worst. It is literally worse than Satan.
So it's literally worse than King's Games. That's what you're saying. Because last podcast we called King's Games Satan. So
I just bring the righteous indignation to the show. That's kind of my thing.
Okay. Yes, Eniko is the hammer of justice. Apparently, according to Cora, she's heard nothing but negative reviews everywhere about the Elder Scrolls Online. Really? Really? I've been actually hearing a lot of hype about it.
I've been hearing
there's always a lot of hype about an MMO, isn't there?
That is true.
It's like the same people also frequently who've gotten bored of every other MMO, thinking that the new one will do something new that'll draw them in, and then it doesn't. I know this because I used to be one of those people.
Oh, Eniko.
Yeah, I've played like 60 MMOs in my time, and eventually I got the point that MMOs were just no longer fun to me.
Okay, but anyway, back to the point about payments for MMOs. I just don't like the subscription policy. Like, I play Guild Wars 2, alright? So I'm recording a Guild Wars 2 series with my friend Aaron. It's a one-shot only, you don't have to pay subscription or anything, and you get continual updates for free.
Mm-hmm. And you don't need to buy anything in a cash shop to actually play it properly.
And here's the thing, it's a fun game. Like, I played World of Warcraft from about 2005 or 2006 all the way up until 2008, and that was pretty much at least 4 to 5 hours a day. It got bad, all right. But comparing WoW to Guild Wars 2, I actually think Guild Wars 2 is a legitimately fun game.
It is. It's pretty decent. I mean, I don't like MMOs, and I like Guild Wars 2. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that it's just a one-shot payment, even better. Like, I'm wondering.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
I'm wondering why aren't with the amount of free-to-play games out there, with the amount of one-shot payments out there, why Elder Scrolls Online is still going for the monthly thing. I mean, even
there is an audience for the monthly. I am the audience for the monthly. Like, I used to play Mabinogi, which probably nobody has ever heard of.
I've actually heard of that.
Wow. I mean, have you played it?
I've actually played it, but it went free to play,
Wow.
didn't it?
Yeah, that went free to play. It used to be, well, it's always been free to play, I think. Yeah, it's always been quote unquote free to play, but to rebirth your character and keep gaining levels, you had to pay. But they had, when I played before, they had one package, which is basically, it was basically a monthly subscription, and everything was in the package. So that was fine. And now they've gone really free to play, where you can rebirth without paying anything. It's just slower. But they've removed the whole package deal thing. So if you want to have the perks, you need to buy them all separately, and that's more expensive. So now I'm not paying them anything. While if they had the package deal, I would actually be like, well, I have plenty of money, I'll just go for this one and be done with it. So there is an audience for that, but the problem is when you do both, like an initial price of purchase and then a subscription fee and then a cash shop. That's triple dipping, and it shouldn't be allowed. It's the same thing with like Dead Space 3 microtransactions in game. It's just ridiculous.
Okay. Nick, do you have any experience with MMOs? You said you didn't play WoW, but anything?
No, I played a fair few from the Eastern markets. I don't specifically know where they were. I think there were a couple from Korea I played. There was one that was I can't even remember most of the game now or its name, but it was
Was that free to play or?
Yeah, they were all free to play, but they support it with very sort of optional payments. The sort of thing that doesn't really alter the game that much, but you got a unique pet or that sort of thing. Just mostly cosmetic things.
Mm-hmm.
And they were quite good. The gameplay did tend to sort of drag on a bit in the mid stage, which is probably where the paid options came into play. But I mainly played them for the interesting sort of worlds they tended to build, because they were a little more different to the more Western style thing, which was at that point. This was about 6-7 years ago. At that point, a lot of our MMOs were either trying to be World of Warcraft or at least very heavily influenced from that sort of fantasy spectrum.
Yeah, that was a depressing time for Western MMOs.
Yeah. So
like, I know, we'll be the next World of Warcraft. Yeah, you and 20 other MMOs.
Ouch.
Yeah, definitely. I never played Guild Wars or Guild Wars 2, though. I was always interested in them because of their payment model. It sounded like a refreshing way of going, than as opposed to you get the feeling that MMOs are trying to purposefully addict people to their games, particularly with the Skinner box mechanic of loot drops.
Interesting.
Well, Guild Wars 2 actually had a bit of a kerfluffle about that when they went with a living world model for their storytelling.
I'm sorry. Could you explain that for anyone?
Okay, so you're not familiar with it?
No.
Okay, well, in Guild Wars 1, you had the expansion model, so that was what a lot of people were expecting. You just get more of the story-based instances, so you keep developing your personal story as the expansions come out. And you can either buy them or you can't buy them. It's your choice. Guild Wars 2 started doing that, and I think like a year in or something, they decided to go with the living world story mode where basically every month they'd roll out a new zone or something with a new worldwide plot event, and the event would only last for that month. And a lot of people were very upset about it because on the one hand it means no more personal story expansions, so your personal story basically stagnates in favor for the world story. But the worst thing was a lot of completionists really disliked the idea of having to keep playing every month to, you know, get everything out of those events, even if they didn't want to, because they felt like if they didn't do it, they'd be missing out on stuff.
Oh, I see. It's
and
sort
a
of...
friend of mine basically quit the game over it. He was like, I can't do it, it's giving me too much stress, so I'm just gonna stop playing.
Wow. That's...
Yeah,
okay.
I don't understand it because I'm not a completionist. I'm like, achievements, who cares? But some people apparently, you know, really don't like that kind of thing.
Wow. Nick, what is do you have any opinion on like developers? You mentioned earlier the Skinner box style of getting gamers to be addicted to your game. Like, what do you have to say about games that still do subscription payments and that basically try to increase the amount of game time, like games that try to increase the amount of time that a player spends on them without any actual, you know, improvement or anything like that?
Well, I think it's definitely a more of a business decision than I would say a game design decision. I don't think anyone would say having your player run around killing maybe the same high-level monster, maybe with a group of friends, 5-6 times, just so that maybe this time the ultra special item will drop, is a good game design decision. I don't think you'd want them facing the same thing again and again and again with no real change. I think it's entirely a business decision because of these subscription models. And I personally, I think it's morally suspect. You're trying to get people to spend vast amounts of time in your world with minimal effort, using what amounts to the same sort of thing that addicts people to gambling. So for those that don't know, the Skinner box is basically random loot drops. You don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's going to be something very mundane. Sometimes it's going to be something excellent. And you remember because the brain tends to remember stronger emotional responses than the more mundane boredom. You remember hey, I picked up an amazing item. Maybe that'll, I don't know, happen again next time. Or, you know, maybe you'll get 100 more, I don't know, boots or wooden swords. But hey, you might get the golden diamond studded sword of plus 50 damage. Who knows? And so people just click away again and again and again, grinding these same bits of gameplay that aren't particularly even interesting for them, because they know that if they keep going, they might get something special.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And,
continue, please.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to summarize, and I just think that sort of way of keeping people in just so you can milk more money out of them is just immoral.
Greymerk said, I'm sorry, I'm just getting to your comment right now. Audience for monthly subscription payments here. I prefer the devs worry about keeping me entertained rather than how to get micro payments out of me when they design content.
Well, that's a fair point.
And in terms of like execution though, I feel like you'll find more of that attitude on the indie side. You know, like I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before on the podcast, but for larger companies, for, you know, basically mainstream quote unquote AAA games, like they kind of have to worry about the bottom line because it's a public company with stocks and everything, and they I'm not condoning it, but I understand it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I agree with Greymerk. I think there is worse things, worse payment models than just a monthly subscription fee. I think that's definitely not the worst thing you can do. I think stuff like Guild Wars 2 or Path of Exile is a lot better. You know, cash shop with cosmetic items mostly. That's a lot preferable, but, you know, there's degrees, I guess.
Okay. Oh, wow. I just got the news right now. Sorry to go on a tangent here, but PopCap apparently let some workers go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Apparently,
how many? Trying to find an exact number, but earlier this week, PopCap actually laid off some employees. Ah, here we go. I will post...
Cutting edge gaming news, people.
I'll post this in the Skype chat so you guys can read it for yourselves from Wall Street Journal, actually. Wow. Yeah, this was actually just 2 days ago. PopCap laid off some employees. Electronic Arts said it is laying off some employees from its PopCap video game division.
It's EA.
Well, EA did purchase PopCap, known for making the hit Plants vs. Zombies.
That's what EA does. It buys up studios, then milks them dry, and then starts firing people.
The company declined to disclose how many people were laid off, but Kotaku reports that it affected between 30 and 40 employees. But wow, I feel sorry for you, PopCap. Hang on, what's going on in chat? Okay. Alright, well, Dapkick, we'll get to that in a bit. But, wow. Do you guys remember when PopCap first came out? In, like, early...
That's a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. I Plants vs. Zombies, I think that was back...
No, didn't they do the one thing with... that was kind of like a pinball type of game? I can't remember the name.
Oh, Peggle.
Yeah, Peggle. They used to do Peggle Deluxe, didn't they, before Plants vs. Zombie?
Yeah, yeah, they did. Oh, man.
I played Peggle. I liked it. Sort of.
Sort of.
Can't really, you know, outright say that I'm a filthy casual, can I?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm the filthiest of casuals. Let's get to Dapkick's comment. So, you know, I think that when you are not playing, you should not be paying for the days you are not online. They should have a system where you buy a 30-60 day subscription and a day will be taken off if you play for 12 hours, so it doesn't matter if you're gone for a month. Ah, yeah, that was a big problem with WoW. For me.
That would be a cool system. I'd be down with an MMO that did that.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
I had often thought about that because like you pay at most $15 per month, you know, whereas unless you get like the big half-year deal or something like that, and it basically made me feel compelled to play. Like that was part of the reason why I kept playing.
But yeah, that is one of the problems of the subscription model, that you feel like, well, if I don't play, I've wasted the money.
Yeah.
I've never had an issue. I just waste the money and don't care.
Yeah, no, pretty much. Well, then again, like I was in high school at the time, and you know, I didn't have a full-time job, so I was like, okay, gotta make the most out of all my money. So I was just like, all right, let's just do it. But honestly, if any MMO adopted a system like that, where you basically you pay for the time that you play, I would be down for that. I would be so down for that.
Yeah, Greymerk is saying $15 as a rate for time. I don't feel like I'm wasting money after I play for about 6 hours that month. I mean, it's like 50 cents a day.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just something about that. Logically, it's like, yeah, it's like 50 cents a day. It's not much,
Yeah.
But just the fact that you paid for an entire month, I think there's some sort of psychological desire to maximize enjoyment in that.
I think the takeaway from this topic is that different pricing models work for different people. Except if you require a subscription plus, microtransactions, then you are literally worse than Satan.
Microtransactions are bad. That's the takeaway to all you devs out there. Microtransactions are bad, and you should feel bad.
No, I don't agree with that. I just think if you're making me pay you, like, how much is it for a subscription fee nowadays? $15? If you're making me pay you $15 a month, you can shut the fuck up and give me the bloody game.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, I feel very strongly about that. I don't want to also be conned into paying you extra through microtransactions, because then you're just being greedy. I think.
Microtransactions are not inherently ethically bad, but I think they're a design hazard from Greymerk. I agree with the design hazard, because with microtransactions you can get away with a lot of crap. It's essentially like bite-sized DLC. Like,
at an inflated rate.
At an inflated rate.
Which is funny, because DLC is actually bite-sized expansions at an inflated rate.
Soon we'll get micro payments that are bite-sized micro payments at an inflated rate, and it'll just continue. It's screwing us over all the way down.
It will continue ad infinitum.
Ouroboros, or however you say that.
The what?
Snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, the Ouroboros. Yeah.
Is that how you say it? I can't say that word.
It's fine. But yeah, it's a weird model, but none of us here are doing that. So it's fine. It's fine. We can bash on it because we're not doing it.
Well, I do miss proper expansions, though.
Me too.
Like,
but
a DLC is just it doesn't really expand on the story that well usually. It's like an optional side quest. And I'm the type of person that completely ignores optional side quests.
But I feel like expansion packs are actually a relic of a bygone age, because if you think about it, expansion packs came out, StarCraft 2 aside. Expansion pack came out during the era of like when you bought everything, like before digital download.
Yeah. Well, that's why DLC got going, I think. Oh, sorry, Nick. I thought you wanted to say something.
Oh no, you go for it.
Okay, well, I do think that's, from the publishing side, that's a thing. But I do think my statement about expansion packs having a more significant effect on the game cosmology is also true. I mean, you still have significant DLC like the Mass Effect 2 DLC with Liara, Shadow Broker.
Oh yeah, I would consider Shadow Broker more so of an expansion than...
Yeah, but it is technically DLC.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing now is a sort of a divergence. There are two schools of doing DLC. Some of them are going the microtransaction way, like those awful Sims DLC that I think total up to something like $300.
Which again is worse than Satan.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about cost? Train Simulator.
Like
2014, 2013, all the DLC added up to well over $1,000 US.
Yeah, it's mad. And there are devs going that way, and they're getting backlash. And I think a lot of the companies, though, even some of the big ones like EA, even to some extent, are going the other way with some of their games. And games like Skyrim, for example, where the DLC is a lot closer to an expansion, half fire not included. But things like their Dawnguard DLC or the Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea DLC, that sort of thing, it's a significant addition. Some people, though, did have some complaints about Infinite's DLC's length being a bit short, but those notwithstanding, there's still some leeway here. But I think the best thing that happened to DLC was horse armor. The backlash horse armor generated really stopped Bethesda from releasing any more tiny DLC and coming out with some really nice. I mean, Shivering Isles was fantastic for Oblivion.
Oh, Jane made a interesting comment. Proper expansions always felt more polished and complete. By necessity, really.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Do you think, like, because of the way technology is with DLC and all that, like, basically live patching everything, do you two think that, and I'm not saying anything negative about the dev community, but, like, it's sort of led to more lax programming, by the way. Like, it's sort of caused an attitude more of, like, oh, we can just patch that in at a later date, or, you know, something like that.
I think that's more of a publisher issue where the team just doesn't get enough time to do it properly, and the publisher's like, no, you're going to release now, you can just patch it in later.
Ah, okay.
I don't think you need to with indies though as well. Although I think that might be because it's more acceptable for indies to release slightly buggier things. But because indies predominantly are doing their business online, it's so much easier for them to push out a quick patch if there's a problem. I mean, I'll try and hang a lampshade on the fact that I had to release a bug fix within 7 days of Hypergauntlet's release. But I think, you know, a prime example being Minecraft, of course, that has still got tons and tons of bugs in it. I mean, it's a very big game, it's to be expected, but there are still some huge, well-documented bugs that they're still getting around to fixing. And
they're constantly making new ones.
Yes, definitely. But I think mostly the reason, I mean, with the publisher side, with the AAAs, I think you're right that it is because these timeframes are being imposed on developers, and they're just not able to fix everything in time. And I think part of that might actually be because, again, a lot of the things are now connected to the internet. You know, you've got Origin, you've got Steam, all these auto-updaters. I think publishers now think they can get away with it. Whereas, obviously, before, as you were saying, if it was in a shop, you had to go and pick up a physical copy. To get an update, you'd have to wait until the expansion came out, or you'd have to, I don't know, maybe log into AOL, dial up, and try and get this 50 kilobyte file or something in a couple of hours. Whereas now you can get, you know, hundreds of megabytes pretty quickly in most places, not everywhere, but in most places. So publishers are a little more lax about it. They're like, oh, just release the extra content in a few weeks. We'll pretend it's a free add-on, or oh, just put the patch out.
They'll actually charge you as DLC nowadays.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
But Dreamsmith Jane is making a good point, because the other side of that is that a lot of indies are doing alpha funding and early access soft launches, kind of like you, and I think that might be an interesting topic for us to handle next, because I don't mind a paid-for beta, but I really, really don't like early access. And I'm not sure what the difference is in my head, because it's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
I guess it would depend on where you draw the line between early access and beta. Like, early access could refer to, like, very, very early, like, almost broken builds.
Well, I mean specifically the Steam-based early access program. I think it might be because Steam is an actual storefront.
Oh, I see what you mean. The early access program on Steam, like, where they're pushing it, like a Rust or 7 Days to Die.
Yeah. Which are becoming top sellers, and you know, if someone buys Hyper Gauntlet beta, they probably know that it's not a finished product and that it can change dramatically, and they're usually going to be your fans.
Yeah,
I assume. who know that they're buying into something that's uncertain. It's kind of like Kickstarter that way. But I think if once you reach the stage where you start, pimping early access games on Steam in the storefront on the front page, I think that's misleading, and I think people are gonna wind up burning themselves and the developers on, buying in early. I think that might be the difference.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be some point in the future there's going to be a big game that fails before it releases. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I imagine at some point it's going to happen, and there's going to be a huge backlash because there are all these disclaimers on Steam, as Jane's saying in the chat, but people have a wonderful ability not to read things. And when you're on Steam, you're getting very used to the format of Steam. You just go straight to the buy button. You look at the pictures, you go, "Ooh, pretty, buy." And so they're going to know it's early access in their brains, but they're going to be expecting something a bit better, something like
just because it's on Steam.
Well, yeah, just because it's on Steam, it's either come from a fairly high standing dev, or it's come through the greenlight process, so it's it's been through the gauntlet.
Even though Steam is by far no longer any guarantee of quality anymore. Those days are gone.
Yeah. No. Although I think that's a good thing, but
I think it's a good thing too, but people are still operating under the assumption, like, if it's on Steam it has to be okay, but there's stuff like, what was that game? War Z?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I went there.
Yo, that hurt my soul, Eniko. That hurt my soul. Okay.
What was the other one? Not the Stanley Parable, the something incident.
Oh, Gary's incident.
Gary's incident, yeah.
Day one.
Yeah. Day one Gary's incident.
Yeah.
It's like, we're gonna get everything in there so people confuse it with actual good stuff.
Oh, man. I'm looking at the top sellers on Steam right now, and outside, like, removing anything that is on sale, because obviously, the top among the 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 4 games being sold. Number 1 is South Park: The Stick of Truth. Number 2 is DayZ. Number 3 is Rust, and number 4 is Banished. Those 3 are all early access, like I think they're like alpha. I think.
Well, that's what Total Biscuit calls the desperation genre, isn't it?
What?
Total Biscuit calls those survival type games, he calls that a desperation genre. It's a genre that people know exists and really want to play, but there's no actual good released game for it yet. And I think that might be part of why they're ranked so high. Also DayZ, because the mod got so much press.
Yeah.
Although DayZ is also a good example of why you should be wary about early access, because the actual developers, he put that thing online where he said, like, I'm like a guy with a grenade, you want me to come up with a game, not finish it, or something.
Wait, did Rocket really do that?
Yeah, he's basically leaving.
He's leaving DayZ?
Didn't you hear?
No, I did not. Well, then again, I don't...
Done.
Oh my god. The original man who made the original DayZ mod,
Dean Hall steps down, plans to start his own game studio. Yeah.
Holy crap.
See if it has the quote in here.
Let's see. Jane says, on the other hand, I haven't heard of a game actually not making it to launch after it's on early access. That would be bad.
I have the quote.
Oh,
I am a grenade, he began. I have a specific use. I'm really good at risk-taking and making other people take risks. And I've always been good at that in my entire life. Like you say, maybe I've got the gift of the gab, so I can talk, I can explain something, I can talk people up to the ledge and get them to jump off it. That's some very good analogies, dude. That's what I did with DayZ. I've done it twice now. But eventually that's the bad person to have eventually. You don't want the guy telling you to go over the top and get through. So at some point, I'll be a disaster for the project, at least in a leadership role.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he acknowledged that he's good for the startup, he's good for kickstarting everything, getting everything rolling, but as for the follow-through, not so much.
Yeah, his mental imagery needs some work.
So I'm the grenade. Oh, good lord.
He's basically saying he conned people into buying his game on early access.
Wow.
He's not saying that, but you could interpret it that way.
Yeah, I think probably more of his games purchases are probably more down to the YouTube players, the LPers and the streamers.
Probably, yeah.
But there's just so much on there on YouTube and on Twitch and everywhere else of people playing it, and it's that sort of game that you can sort of write a story about your experience in it. The best example of that I can think of is Dwarf Fortress. It's such a minimal game, but where all these mechanics in the case of DayZ, all the people come together and they can pretty much do what they want within this world. Then you get these stories of, I don't know, that there are a lot of people being killed for cans of beans in the game, from what I've read, and a lot of every now and then though you get a good Samaritan who'll save you from a pack of a gang of vicious people after your beans again, only to turn around and kill you for your pack of beans.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of those stories as well. Sorry.
I don't understand why people play these games. I really do not understand.
It's a sandbox. It's a moral sandbox. You can do whatever you want.
It's not, though. It's just a kind of cleverly disguised deathmatch.
This is true. This is true. which is part of the appeal, because then you get into alliances and stuff like that. Like the gameplay.
Does that actually happen, though, or is it just anarchy completely and people just killing each other over beans constantly?
Well, here's the thing, though. If you run that anarchy model to its completion, everyone would be dead, which is why you'll have back and forth. You'll have, like, momentary alliances, and I think that's mostly the appeal behind games like DayZ or Rust. It's that you get that tense moment where, oh, are you my friend or are you my foe? Are you here to, are we going to beat each other to death with these rocks we found? Or use the rocks and hunt boar or something? Yeah, like Dreamsmith Jane says, the balancing act is what makes it interesting. Because you don't know who's your foe. It's not until you start talking to them.
I guess I'm just not the target audience.
Well, it's for everyone. It's like... Well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to say it's not for everyone. There we go. I'm having brain farts left and right. But honestly, if you're into very tense negotiations and stuff like that, then yeah, this game, the Rust and DayZ would definitely be for you. Just make sure you're on a server that speaks your language. Because I have an anecdotal story. Heard from a friend, he was playing Rust, ended up on a Russian server that had excellent ping. Okay, excellent ping. But everyone there spoke Russian, so he's the only one there who speaks English, and people were running up to him, yelling at him in Russian, and he's like, I don't understand what you're saying, and then they beat him to death.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens.
I mean, I think they were trying to negotiate for this all the chicken meat that he had, but he just like couldn't understand Russian, so they just decided, let's just kill him and take it anyway. Like he was legitimately scared out of his mind. It's like you have a pack of like 4 people yelling at you in Russian, and you're like, oh my god, I don't know. I didn't know this was a Russian server. And I agree with Nick in that it's stories like these that kind of get you to play the game. It's just like, oh, can I experience that? Can I also get beaten?
I guess I'd rather read about it than actually experience it.
Well, on my side, in terms of like streaming or YouTubing, like that is gold material.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
To be able to say like, hey, I got beaten to death by 4 Russian dudes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, no.
Bludgeoned to death by angry Russians.
Yep. Hey.
Knowing Rust, they were probably naked as well.
Yeah, I imagine so. Can you imagine the title, like how many views I would get? Beaten to death by 4 naked Russian men. Can you imagine how many views I would get? That'd be
Preface
fantastic.
it in all caps with worst death ever.
Yes. And then have like in small parentheses Rust gameplay. Because they don't actually they don't care that it's Rust gameplay. They care that I was beaten by 4 naked Russian men and it was the worst death ever.
So we have another comment here.
Okay.
Never underestimate the power of self-organizing systems. Real life has no rules either.
Fundamentally.
I can't agree as someone who's big on MMOs. I've played Ultima Online, and that started off with like no holds barred, you know, every man for himself, and you know they basically ruined the game so badly that they split the world into 2 mirrors, one where you can't actually PvP and the other where you could. And eventually nobody lived in the place where you could because people were bastards.
Wow.
Yeah, well, the thing is, this is what you always see in MMOs. It's like if you give people the ability to grief others and come out ahead without repercussions, they're always gonna do it. And in real life, you can't just go around killing people and taking their beans because, one, you're probably gonna go to jail for a very long time, and 2, if you try and kill someone for their beans, they might not have any beans, and also they might kill you. And you don't get a respawn.
I think that's a strong case for permadeath in some of these games, actually.
Yeah, but how
some
permadeath can permadeath be? Because most of these games do have permadeath.
Mm-hmm.
It's that like that one game.
Well,
Is that Rust with the demons?
the what?
No, that's not Rust. That's some other game, isn't
you're
it?
talking about Nether.
Yeah, Nether. That has
Nether.
a character progression system, and if you die, your progression goes away. So I assume nobody progresses ever.
It's interesting. Like you're talking about permadeath in that you lose everything. So I don't know. It kind of, yeah, you're right. It does discourage players from like progressing and getting higher stuff because they live with the acknowledgement that they're gonna die.
There's also workarounds for that though. It's like in Ultima Online, the idea was there's a justice system. Okay, so if you kill someone who's blue, their name is blue, they're an upstanding citizen, you can get a murder count. And if you attack someone, you go grey, and it means anyone can kill you without getting a murder count. If you get enough murder counts, eventually you go red, and you can't actually go into civilized places anymore because the gods will insta-gib you, and anyone can kill you freely. All the time, basically. And they figured, well, that's gonna fix it, right? But eventually, the really bad griefers and PKs just had separate accounts. One where they went troll, and then another where they did all their legitimate business. It's kind of like the mafia.
You have the leg breakers and then you have the deal makers.
Yeah, you've got the restaurant owners, and then you've got the people who kill other people.
Yeah, you have the people in the back, basically.
Yeah, the people in the back, exactly.
Who are employed by the restaurant owners.
And that's the thing, in real life, you can't roll up another character. So I don't think that analogy holds up all that well. I think it's always going to be worse in games because there's ways to break the system.
But then again, if you think about it, video games offer a sort of simulation aspect. You know, it's like until virtual reality becomes such a thing that we can't tell the difference, anymore, we will always know when we're playing a video game. So that's like it's part of the appeal of games is that it's an expression. You know, like, oh, I can't be an asshole in real life, so I will just go burn down this village to vent my frustrations. And some players do that.
Yeah. I think VR might actually be different. But I'm not sure. I keep hearing that the brain can't distinguish that it's not real. So I'm not sure how much of a shock to the system it is when you die in VR. Probably not enough of one, because you're still alive.
Dreamsmith Jane says that, well, that's why the karma system needs to be global for each player account, not each character. So that
but like I said, they just bought a second account.
Well, at that point, you know, if you're willing to spend extra money just to get back into the game, that's their own thing. In my opinion, at least. Like, in my opinion, if you're willing to go past the limit and just buy another copy, that is your own prerogative.
Sure, but you had like this 5% of completely batshit insane players who were ruining it for the other 95%.
Well, I think for there you'd have in like patches or something like that. Like there would be some sort of feedback system for sure.
Well, what they did is just, you know, separate them. Which explains why only 5% live in a world where you can, you know, randomly kill people.
Most terms of service allow only one account per person. Interesting. So if they got caught, they lose both.
Yeah, I don't think they'd enforce that too well, though, because they're getting paid double. That's cynical. Sorry.
Anyway, is that yeah, basically what Amelware said. Nick, do you have any topics you'd like to talk about, or would you like to talk more about your game, or?
There's one topic that was bandied about a while ago, last month or 2 months ago, which is a while in internet terms apparently, and that was the idea of the indie bubble. And I think it's a little different than a bubble. I've been thinking about it recently again. I'm not sure why, because it appears we all solved that and moved on to something else. But I think what it actually is it's an impending golden age of indie games, because what we're getting is, with all these free tools and permissive licenses, like with, for example, Unity, Game Maker, all of these engines and frameworks, all of these people putting up free game art, free music that you can use commercially even. There's a lot of public domain stuff. I think we're getting a lot of people who are just getting started with making their games. They're going, hey, I could do a game for free. I can make one in maybe 48 hours for Ludum Dare, and then maybe I can extend that later and try and sell it or give it away for free and that sort of thing. And we're getting a huge variety of vastly different games with considerably more innovation to them, because they're not averse to taking a risk with it, because it hasn't cost them much. So you're getting amazing games coming out. Games like, well, Gone Home was fantastic. I'm not suggesting that didn't cost anything to make, though. But you can get all these darling little indie projects as well. You can get games like the wonderful Celador games, Don't Shit Yourself, for example, which I think was... Yeah, it's a game. It's the people who made Rogue Legacy. It was the first game they made, and it's essentially...
Does it have anything to do with poop?
It does. You desperately need the toilet, and you have to go to the toilet
without
soiling
yourself.
I have never heard
I've heard about this. It's sort of like those old style like input command games.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I've heard of that. Oh man, I've always wanted to play it, but I've never thought it was appropriate for my channel.
Sounds like a good stream idea.
I would think so. Like literally one of the commands you can type in is just poop, and you just poop in your pants.
Yeah.
Like you literally just stand there, and the game says game over. You pooped in your pants.
I think there's an achievement if you do that in the first move.
So it's like the Stanley Parable, except with poop.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
And it's amazing that these games exist, because in the old days when it was so much harder to make a game, to distribute a game, to even just get people to know it exists, you know,
Yeah.
maybe 10, 15 years ago, particularly without the internet, it was very hard to get someone to play your game.
Have you been making games that long?
No, oh no, no. I
Because I
started.
have, and I have some horror stories about working with DirectX 7 and DirectDraw over in
Oh.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
The best one was when I wanted to have, text in my game, and I didn't want to do just, a sprite font. So I was hooking the Windows API to use the Windows text rendering, except if you did anything wrong with it, you'd get a blue screen, your entire system would just go down. And
God,
so
that sounds
while I was
painful.
working on that, I'd crash my PC like 20 times in an hour.
And I
That
thought
was fun.
DX11 was bad.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
it gets
Sounds like a walk
Gets
in the
worse.
park. Yeah, and I think you've got games being made that aren't trying to be the pinnacle of rendering technology anymore, which is, I think, fantastic. You've got games being made in Java, like Minecraft. You've got games being made in Unity and that sort of thing, which are inherently multi-platform. Mac gamers are now getting a huge ton of indie games and Linux games as well.
HTML5.
HTML5, yeah, exactly. You can play games on the web now so much easier. There's just such an ability for everyone now to make something, instead of just the studios or just someone in their garage or in their bedroom typing away for ages,
just
who might
people
not be
who-
noticed.
Even just people who can't even make games at all, who can write stories, they can use Twine.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you can't do any coding, for example, Game Maker lets you make a game using just dragging and dropping of actions, and there are all these different ways of making things like visual scripting techniques and that sort of thing.
Okay, so I'm just putting up gameplay of Don't Shit Your Pants.
Yeah.
It's a very simplistic
It's a
game.
survival horror game. Oh my god.
It is horrible, so I will say that.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's not a bubble. I mean, I'm not an economist, so I'm not big on economy, but I think bubbles are when there's just so much money going around that people don't even know what to do with it anymore. And that's not the case with the indies, is it? Most people, it's like doing it alongside their job, or they're going full indie with like a studio consisting of one, like me, or 2 or 3 people, and it's just not the same thing. And sure, some people are gonna try to go full indie and they're gonna fail because they're not that good, because that's just what happens. But I think the cream will keep rising to the top, and I think more and more good indie games are gonna come out, and also the indie community supports each other and tries to get publicity for each other, and that's very important for everyone to get noticed, because there's just a much bigger pie than anyone can get a piece of anyway. Even with Notch taking like half of the pie for Minecraft.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only people who should worry about it being a bubble are the people who are making Flappy Bird clones to just try and cash in. The people that are there just to cash in on something that they think is a growing trend, they should be
the
worried
lazy
about a
clone
bubble.
mobile games.
Yeah, they should be worried, because at some point they're not going to be successful anymore, because there will be so many other indie game developers making something that they genuinely love and are passionate about, and something that is just so out there or different, or just this wonderful step forwards from what we've
This game
previously
is so
got.
bad.
Yeah, this is by the people who made Rogue Legacy, which I love as a
They've
side.
kind of gone up in the world, haven't they?
Yeah, just a bit.
I would say so. They have moved up very high. But oh, that's right. We actually have a chat topic. If you guys would like to talk about it, it refers to online multiplayer in action games. like Towerfall Ascension. If do you two know what that game is?
I've heard about it.
Yeah, I think I'm at the same level of knowledge.
I believe it's an Ouya game. Hang on, let me just get rid of this. Seriously. Okay, done. Go away, poop
It is
game.
amazing.
Go away, poop game.
It is art in stop motion.
It's something. Pants, they get you every time. Anyway, go away, game. God, we don't need the poop. Enough with the poop game. Anyway, Towerfall Ascension. Onto a chat topic. I think it's an Ouya game, but it's local multiplayer only. So let me pull up some Towerfall Ascension.
Well, local multiplayer only is always a bad idea. It's better to just not have multiplayer.
Yeah, I agree. If you're going to
so.
do multiplayer, you may as well go the whole way.
The problem for indies and multiplayer is that, and I'm going to be harsh here, when indies do multiplayer, especially in action games, it's always bad because they don't do lag compensation, because to do proper lag compensation, that's an enormous amount of work.
I think that's part of the issue, part of the argument, against having online multiplayer, because lag is not handled well.
Even in something like Castle Crashers. I mean, I was playing with a buddy from the UK, and I'm Dutch, and you think that would be fine, but it wasn't. And if you look at something like Terraria, I just stopped playing it because, I couldn't hit stuff before it hit me, and that's just not fun. So I do respect that they did local-only multiplayer, because that was probably the only thing that was within their means to do well. But, so is this powerful?
Let's see, I think...
It's an arena-type game, okay, well,
yes.
That's a problem. If you have an arena-type game with only local multiplayer, I mean, you can do it, but nobody's going to buy it or play it.
Actually, Ouya as a platform is designed around local multiplayer. I think, like, the argument goes the same way for 2D fighting games, like Street Fighter or anything like that. Like, no one wants to play online.
They also have online modes now, though.
Yeah, but no one wants to play online mode because of the Twitch reaction required.
Well, they've actually done some lag compensation methods in the latest ones, like, I heard Skullgirls lag compensation is really good.
Oh,
they have methods for that now. So, and same thing with Killer Instinct. I believe it's like a widely used method in fighting games now. The problem, I think, with Towerfall and the Ouya is that the Ouya as a platform just wasn't very successful.
What's that? On the other hand, I'm annoyed at consoles veering towards online multiplayer only. It can be hard to find games to play with a friend on the couch. Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's kind of lazy to only have online multiplayer, because you can always embed the server in the client. And then it would just be, you just have to rig up the second input. So I think that's more of a sign of being lazy.
I think it's I think StarCraft 2 also gets the same criticism as well, because it's online only, but because of the mechanics of how the map is designed, like everything is actually client side. It's just logging in is all server side. So they kind of got some flack for not having local multiplayer, like LAN. There's no local area.
That's also a piracy issue, except not so much in indie games, of course.
Okay.
If you allow a LAN option, then people can use stuff like, what's it called? They can use stuff like Hamachi to tunnel and, like, skip around services that would normally require you to have a game key, so a legit copy.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. And
I know this because I've done it.
Oh, Eniko.
I know. I don't make a habit of it, but you know.
Bad. No, Diablo 3 does not have local single player. Everything Diablo 3 related is done on the server.
It does though on the PS3.
That doesn't count. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Vin's about to rage quit here.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count. Listen, okay. I bought Diablo 3 pre-release. You son of a gun. And when I wanted to play it on release, like I encountered the same problem everyone and their mother did. You can't play because the server is full. Everyone just want to play single player games.
Hey, it could be worse. I bought a lifetime membership to Hellgate London.
Ooh.
Yeah. And Champions Online, by the way. Which went free to play. I have the worst, purchasing decisions ever. But yeah, I think especially the multiplayer only games, especially the indie games, are kind of making it hard on themselves. It's the same with Towerfall, but my brother works at Code Glue, and they made an Xbox Live Arcade game called Rocket Ride, and that's also a multiplayer arena deathmatch type game, and it has an online mode and a local mode, and it just didn't sell well because nobody was playing it. And it's the same thing with, oh god, what was that game again? I can't remember. And there's also other games like that, like Ibanob, which is also from the same company, which is a great little puzzle game, and you can actually play it alone, but it's designed to be played co-op with 2 people.
Okay,
and it's just harder to convince people to play together than it is to convince one person to play alone.
No, Kino. Kino says you would think a subscription-based game would give you compensation if it ever goes free to play.
They did actually. I get to keep the perks, like the cash shop subscription model thing.
Okay.
I get all those perks all the time, and I get some extra like cash shop money every month, but I haven't played since release because it's a bad game.
Ouch.
But it's made by Statesman, who used to be the lead designer on City of Heroes, and he transferred the same ridiculous 1 superhero equals 3 minions type design philosophy.
Oh, that's an actual philosophy?
Yeah, he actually got really pissed off at City of Heroes because the players were all like, yeah, but you can twink your character out and jump into the middle of 30 things and, up the difficulty so it's still challenging, and that's really fun. And he was like, no, nerf everything. Nerf all the things, because 1 hero should take only 3 minions.
Oh.
No more. And eventually they basically ousted him, and he went on to make Champions Online, and I thought he got better, but apparently he didn't. So you got like that whole World of Warcraft pull 1 group of mobs at a time type gameplay, and it's just, it doesn't make you feel very super.
Okay, now this is a very interesting topic that I wanted to get into. Nick and Eniko, what are your positions on sort of like nerfing the player in order to fit the game design?
I think if you need to nerf the player and the player says that it makes the game less fun, then your design is probably wrong.
I think I agree. If nerfing the player makes the game more fun, go for it. And I can imagine some situations where that might be the case. In the case of something like City of Heroes, where it's all about you having ridiculous powers, you're a superhero, you should be able to take out, a horde of minions all in one go. And it's more about the style of doing it than the fact. It's like those games like Infamous and all that, where you've got all these ridiculous powers, you can do whatever you want, but it is less about beating a game and more about looking ridiculously cool.
Sort of Metal Gear Rising, Bayonetta type things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you've got a game like that, you really shouldn't be trying to make it difficult. You should let the player be able to do what sounds really cool, maybe reward them for doing extra cool things or something like that. And if you really want to make it hard for them, bring out a ridiculous boss, but don't make minions hard.
Well, if it's a game like League of Legends and one champion is completely OP, I can see that. But that's not really what Vin was asking, I think.
I'm referring to like single player games. You know,
yeah, then why are you nerfing the player's fun? You're doing it wrong. Stop.
I don't know. Like, I don't know what the point is in nerfing single player games, I guess. Like, have either of you two played the original Fable from Lionhead Studios?
Didn't I have this argument with Garrett, by the way, in the first podcast?
Yes, you did. But like PvE multiplayer, like I don't see the point. I mean, unless it's something obviously broken. But if the players feed back to you, I think Garrett said, Garrett, the developer of Black Eyes, which is currently on release right now, by the way, plug. But what he said was, if the feedback of the player says that they enjoyed it, I think, or am I taking your position? It was one of you two said that if based on the feedback of the player, if they're enjoying it, then it should be fine.
That's what I said, and
that's
he
what you
said, well,
okay.
In his vision, I mean, I was taking it very far because it was an exploit and it made it way too easy to beat his game.
Oh, right.
And he was like, at that point, you do need to step in because it's like a bug and it's an exploit. I was basically playing devil's advocate, but in principle, he agreed with me that if the game is more fun that way, why would you make it less fun? Because that's what games are about, right? Having fun.
I agree. I mean, there's a classic example of the combo system. Apparently, it came about because I think it was in Street Fighter or something like that. If you hit the same button in exactly the right timing, you do two moves instead of one, and that was at that time a bug. It wasn't actually meant to be in there. But if you look at it now, it's everywhere. It was fun because it was something that required skill. You know, only the best players could really master the timing, and it became just another level to the game. And I think in cases of bugs and glitches where the result is more fun, I think Emma's right. It should stay in there. You should only really fix something like this if it is detrimental to the game in cases like, for example, you've accidentally, I don't know, left on God mode or something, and no one's having any fun because of it. If people are enjoying it, keep it in there. Just turn it into a feature.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
I think part of the problem is that a lot of game developers have a sort of conceit where they're like, but this is how I intended it. And I think it's kind of like making a song or making, a poem or whatever. You make the work, it's your creative effort, but what people take away from it once you put it out there is, oh, that's a good one. It's like Ender's Game. Because Orson Scott Card never intended for people to take away a whole lot of things from Ender's Game, including some, queer acceptance messages that people thought was in there, because the guy's a raging homophobe. But he put the work out there, and what people take away from the work, that's more important than what the author or the dev or whatever intended, I think. And if I think devs who think differently, I think that's a kind of conceit. And I think this, if you want to get philosophical about it, it might even be one of the things why games are not considered art. Because the people who enjoy the product are still being forced to enjoy it the way the person who created it intended.
Carnor says, in terms of balancing, I'll get to the rest of the comments as soon as possible, but you should always err on the side of making the player too weak. That way, when you buff them, people celebrate. If you made them too powerful and then you nerf them, people will hate it. So, what I think, Carnor, I think what you're trying to say is initially make the character as weak as possible and then add in buffs later, right? So, what do you two think about that?
That reminds me of...
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree. It reminds me of an argument a friend of mine, Noble Kale, maker of the game Quarries of Skred,
Currently on sale.
once said about pricing. He told me, because I wasn't sure what to put Hypergauntlet out as, and he said, just charge at the higher amount because you can always lower the price later and people will love it. But if you put it too low and you decide you should have put it higher later, you're going to find that a lot harder.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
It's much better to treat the player to something than to punish them later.
Alright, let's get to the rest of these comments. Let's see, there was, according to Greymerk, there was recently a nerf in Terraria to stop casters from being able to solo hard mode bosses in single player. They intend for you to not be able to solo wait, what? Oh, I guess you're trying to say their intent for you not to be able to solo them pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah, some people just like playing casters. Why would you make it impossible for someone to beat the game if they're a caster?
I don't...
That's ridiculous.
Especially...
It is literally worse than Satan.
God damn it.
That's gonna be a thing.
Yes, that will be your constant. That will be your flavor text. I'm giving you flavor text.
At any chance, literally worse than Satan.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I've got to agree. If the game's got a single player mode, you should be able to do all of it in single player, in the way you want to play it.
I'm not sure what kind of argument there could be the reverse.
I mean, I don't see the point behind nerfing, like behind nerfing a single player game. Like, I really don't. But then again, you know, you do have to you know, fix, like, obviously broken stuff like that.
At least you put in the scare quotes.
Yes. There we go. Done. Flavor texted. Let's see. What other thing? Well, the point is some people want to be able to solo the game in some fashion, given that it's a single-player game for many. That's true. That's true. And I think in Terraria, single-player maps are separated from multiplayer. Like, you have to set up a multiplayer server in order to have...
Yeah, and a multiplayer character, I think.
I
might be wrong.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about something like Terraria. It's like, would it be more effort to specifically nerf it for single player mode, or would if you wanted to nerf them, would you have to do it like just blanket everywhere? Like, could you specifically choose to nerf something on single player, but not? I mean, to nerf something on multiplayer, but not nerf it on single player.
I'm not sure why you would nerf it on multiplayer either. I mean, the implicit thing here is that with guns or melee weapons, you could solo the boss. You just can't do it with just magic, unless I'm misunderstanding.
Well, I'm talking like generally, like to nerf it on multiplayer, you could, you could balance encounters for multiplayer.
Yeah, it's like another player has entered the game. Diablo's minions grow stronger.
Ooh. Food for thought. Dreamsmith Jane, are single-player games with leaderboards really single-player? Now, Udell, you have leaderboards in your game, even though it's primarily single-player. What do you think?
I do. I reckon it's single-player games with leaderboards are single-player games that you can then choose to enjoy a competitive aspect to that you would get in multiplayer. I would still say they're single-player, but you've got this option there. I mean, people playing Hypergauntlet, they can ignore the high scoreboards if they want, if they're not interested. But if they are and they want this sort of this feeling of beating someone, of being the very best, of of this competitiveness, then they can go for it. But I think ultimately it's still a single player experience even if there are high scoreboards.
Well, I have a question about that. You don't need to actually answer this because it's a rhetorical question, but what is your security on making sure that the leaderboard scores are actually legit?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, in Hyper Gauntlet, can you guarantee that score that enters the leaderboard is actually legit? As in not hacked?
Oh, it's possible. I'm not obviously a very seasoned developer. I certainly think someone can, probably, if they set their mind to it. There's a nice refreshing thing in that the leaderboards effectively reset every time I put out a new version. I also have direct access to them if I needed to delete one. But yeah, there's no guarantee. And one of the nice things is it's not integral to the game.
But yeah, see, and this is what Connor is saying. There's a lot of games out there with top scores of 999999999, and it gets annoying. And I think that's part of why you can't claim that a game with leaderboards is not single player, because it's inherently not going to be fair in the leaderboard anyway, unless you're comparing yourself against people who you know are being fair about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think essentially if the game holds up in a vacuum with no one else in the world playing it, then I would still consider it a single player game. And games with high scoreboards, predominantly, unless they've woven it into the game mechanics somehow, hold up entirely as their own experience with very little detriment to them, even if no one else plays the game at all.
I would have to agree.
Wait.
Apparently Vin died.
No, not dead. Just reading the comments, actually. The World of Goo bonus ball tower, best leaderboard ever. What is... I've never played World of Goo. What is that? Oh, what game did Udell make? Nick, would you...
I made a game called Hyper Gauntlet, which has the full name of Hyper Gauntlet: Legacy of Nozzle Thruster 3, which is actually the Nozzle Thruster the third, if I recall. The name was suggested by Noble Kale again, actually, the guy who made Quarries of Skred. I like to think of it as a first-person Hyper Gauntlet, in essence. It's sort of you're constantly hurtling forwards. You get faster and faster. You've got this array of 3x3 blocks that are randomized in their patterns, and you've got to try and dodge in the gaps between them. And there are things like the ability to slow down time, and there are power-ups that help you through that. But the main aim of the game is just try and beat your score as you keep going, again and again, through the gauntlet.
Noble Kale is...
I need to talk to Noble Kale a lot more, apparently.
Yeah, and he's really into it. Yeah, that man.
Yeah, definitely.
He's really into it. Or if you need someone to kick you in the butt to get going.
Then again, I'm kind of a weird indie dev in that I like to quietly make my game in isolation for the most part.
I think we're coming up on 2 hours now, so how about we just wrap up here by reintroducing ourselves and our projects, and we'll end the podcast there, unless you guys have any more last topics you would like to talk about, Eniko, Nick, or the chat.
No, I don't have anything. Gaming news has been kind of slow.
No, I think that's all. If it's okay, I'd like to give out a few keys to Hyper Gauntlet to people, just for listening to my voice.
Which
kind of been nice. I've got some free ones, yeah. I don't know if these will go through on the chat, but basically, click a link, get a game. They're links to Indie Game Stand. So basically, that'll give you a link to Hyper Gauntlet, including any future updates. You've got a copy of it redeemed on there. You will need an account with them, but as far as I know, they don't do anything silly with it.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't bother.
Yeah, if you're watching it on YouTube, then I may pop along with 2 more for the comments on there. So there's free copies of Hyper Gauntlet and all future updates. If you do get it on, I mean, it's currently on Greenlight as well. If it does get through the Greenlight process, which would be lovely, you'll also get Steam keys. They'll go onto your Indie Game Stand account from there.
You should link to the Greenlight page so everyone can vote it up.
Yes, please do.
Oh yes, of course. Here we go.
I'm actually amazed that it's allowing you to post it with the HTTPS, because normally Hitbox Chat is like, nope, denied. You are magical, man.
Maybe I just got lucky this time.
Hey,
he's got the touch.
Whatever works. You got the power, man. But yeah, feel free. This is the part where we just talk about ourselves. Kino, this podcast has been running for about 2 hours, but you came in at about the halfway point. So yeah, you got a fair amount of it. They updated chat. Yes, they did. Cool. So anyway, Nick, since you're the guest and you've already been handing out, freebies, feel free.
Okay. I'm obviously just finishing off. I'm Nick Udell. You've been hearing my voice. I'm very sorry. Yeah, developer of Hyper Gauntlet. Udellgames.com/game/Hyper Gauntlet. I should probably get a better URL for that. Udellgames.com for the rest of my stuff. There's some Game Jam stuff on there. Some of it's not horrendous. I recently did a Ludum Dare game in LD48 that was about you trying to not soil yourself during an interview, which was it was.
This is like a theme tonight.
Yeah, it's a strange theme. It was it's one of those typing games. So you type in the prompts of answering interview questions within a time limit, but the story goes from weird to incredibly weird. So you can play all of that on my website, linked from there for free. And there's also, there's a free version of Hyper Gauntlet up there, but it's, I would say, not representative of the current product.
Well, Kino, if you'd like more of the podcast, you can come up with topics, dude.
We're all tapped out.
Yep. But yeah, it really does sound like the theme of tonight's podcast is not pooping yourself.
Apparently. That's also a thing in One Finger Death Punch. It's like, please don't forget to try not to fart in one of the loading screens.
Wait, what?
Seriously.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I guess that's very good advice.
Okay. Wow. Alright, Eniko, hit us up with your stuff.
I'm Eniko. I run Kitsune Games, kitsunegames.com. We have a nice little bit of licensing for YouTubers and streamers who want to, well, I do, because it's just me, who want to play the games on there. I'm working on Mid-Boss, and the alpha should be coming out, an alpha preview, in about a week, so keep an eye on my Twitter at AnnieChan. And I've also made a game called No Way Out, which you can play in your browser for free for Ludum Dare 28. Got second place in mood, fourth place in audio, 36th placed overall, so it's pretty good. And you can play that on my site.
Oh, apparently Eniko is being drowned out by music? I'm not playing any music, so
I think Jane is playing music on her own system.
Okay. Okay, okay.
So yeah, follow my Twitter for news on Mid-Boss and look on my site for No Way Out.
Yes, and their Twitters and their websites have been on the screen this entire podcast. So, as well as my stuff. I'm SuperVin47. The podcast, I'm starting to get back into auto-playing trailers, no love. Okay, I'm trying to get back into regular podcasts now that I've gotten pretty much everything sorted out, and I am starting to hammer out formats and everything, so expect 2 podcasts a month This one, the Game Dev Podcast, and another one, the Checkpoint Podcast. Game Devs, obviously, for game devs. And Checkpoint Podcast is for gaming media, gaming YouTubers, streamers, entertainers, anything like that. I'm also starting to get back into regular YouTube edited content, which you guys can check out at my YouTube. Also been on the screen this entire time. I believe if there are any more closing remarks. So sad that the first ones get any. Oh, okay. Any other closing remarks from you two?
Literally worse than Satan.
Well, I'd just like to say this has been really good. I've really enjoyed this.
I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad you had fun, man. One of the first things I try to do is just make sure everyone has fun, and then we can get into killing each other with sensitive topics.
Yeah. You've been a very good guest.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and I hope we've been very good hosts.
Oh, you've been amazing.
Okay.
Well, he's been amazing. I've just been.
Literally worse than Satan.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, guys, this has been the Game Dev Podcast, episode 3. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much, Nick Udell, for being a gracious guest. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.